Only the truth will set you free. Lila and Khalid stared in horror. Who was this spirit? What truth did it speak of? Lila and Khalid stood on the banks of the Rufiji River, the air thick with mystery and the whispering breeze. The river was wide and dark, winding through the heart of Tanzania like a coiled snake. Lila had heard tales of this river, of the lost souls that roamed its waters, seeking redemption. But she never believed in such things. To her, this journey was about discovery, not ghosts. Khalid, on the other hand, felt uneasy. His instincts told him there was more to the river than met the eye. "Are you sure about this, Lila?" Khalid asked, gripping his paddle tightly. "The elders say the river carries secrets. Secrets we may not be ready to face." Lila smiled, her eyes sparkling with determination. "We've faced worse, haven't we? What's a little mystery compared to the adventures we've had?" She didn't know then how much truth was in Khalid's words. As they pushed their small wooden boat into the water, the river seemed to come alive. The current pulled them forward, and soon the world around them grew silent. The trees on the shore became distant shadows, and an eerie mist curled over the surface of the water. Khalid glanced nervously at Lila, who stared ahead, her mind set on whatever treasure might lie at the end of the river. Hours passed as they drifted deeper into the heart of the Rufiji River. The once calm waters grew restless, small ripples turning into sudden cold waves. Lila's heart began to pound, though she didn't understand why. Khalid's grip tightened on the paddle, his gaze scanning the foggy horizon. Then a whisper, a voice faint and haunting, floated across the water. "Lila! Khalid!" The sound froze them both. Khalid's eyes widened. "Did you hear that?" Lila nodded, her mouth suddenly dry. "It's just the wind," she tried to reassure him, but the fear in her voice betrayed her. But it was no ordinary wind. The whisper grew louder, and then they saw it. A ghostly figure standing in the river ahead. It was tall, its body shimmering like the mist, and it carried a spear that glowed faintly in the dim light. "The river knows your pain," the spirit said, its voice deep and echoing. "You have entered the realm of the lost souls. Only the truth will set you free." Lila and Khalid stared in horror. Who was this spirit? What truth did it speak of? The spirit's words lingered in the air like a heavy cloud. The boat, once moving swiftly, now seemed to be held in place by an invisible force. Khalid was the first to speak, his voice barely a whisper. "What do you mean?" "What truth?" The spirit's eyes glowed brighter, and suddenly the river itself began to change. The calm water swirled, forming shapes, visions of memories long buried in Lila and Khalid's hearts. They both gasped as scenes from their past appeared before them, like a cruel mirage. Lila saw herself as a little girl, standing by her father's grave. Tears rolled down her face as the memory of that day came flooding back. She had always blamed herself for his death, though deep down she knew it wasn't her fault. Khalid too was not spared. He saw the day he had failed to protect his younger brother during a storm. He had promised to keep him safe, but the river had taken his brother that fateful day. The guilt still weighed heavy on his soul. "You must face the truth," the spirit said again, its voice softer now but no less chilling. "Or you will never leave this river." Lila's chest tightened as she relived the memory of her father's death. Her hands clenched into fists, the pain and guilt suffocating her. She'd never allowed herself to fully grieve. She'd always pushed it aside, focusing on the future. But now, with the spirits of the river forcing her to confront the past, she felt the full weight of her emotions. Khalid was no different. He stared at the swirling vision of his younger brother, tears stinging his eyes. How many times had he dreamed of this moment, of being able to change what had happened that day? But no matter how much he wished it, the past remained the same, haunting him like a shadow. "Lila, I can't do this," Khalid whispered, his voice cracking. "I can't face this again." Lila reached out, grabbing his hand. Her touch was firm, and though her own heart was breaking, she knew they had to stay strong for each other. "We have to, Khalid. It's the only way to escape this river." The spirit watched them, its face unreadable. "The truth is not easy to face," it said, "but it will set you free." As the boat drifted deeper into the mist, the visions became more intense. Lila and Khalid were no longer mere observers. They were part of the memories. The river seemed to pull them in, forcing them to relive each painful moment in vivid, heartbreaking detail. It was no longer just about facing the past. It was about feeling it, living it, and enduring the emotions they had long buried. Lila stood beside her father's grave once more, but this time she didn't feel distant. She could feel the cold rain on her skin, the way it soaked through her clothes, chilling her to the bone. The weight of sorrow crushed her chest, pressing down on her heart like a boulder. She heard her father's voice, not as a comforting memory, but as a ghostly echo in her mind. He had always told her to be strong, to live without regret. But how could she when she carried this guilt inside her every day? The loss of her father had never left her, and now it was swallowing her whole, like the river that surrounded them. Khalid was caught in his own nightmare. The storm that had taken his brother raged once again, the river swirling angrily around him. He reached out for his brother's hand, but just like before, the current was too strong. The water pulled them apart, his brother's terrified face disappearing beneath the waves. Khalid screamed, the sound of his voice blending with the howling wind, the crashing thunder and the rushing river. He had promised to protect his brother, and he had failed. That failure haunted him every day, and now the river was forcing him to relive it. Their cries filled the air, mingling with the whispers of the lost souls. The river was not just a body of water. It was a place of torment, a river of pain carrying the weight of their pasts. The spirits watched them, silent but ever present, as if waiting to see if Lila and Khalid would break under the pressure. But as the memories washed over them, something began to change. They began to fight back. Through the pain and the grief, Lila and Khalid began to see something else, something that had been buried beneath the sorrow all along. It wasn't just about the sadness they had carried, but the love they had lost sight of in their own guilt. There, in the middle of the river, surrounded by the mist and the spirits, they found a glimmer of hope. Lila remembered the way her father used to hold her hand when she was thus little, his rough but gentle fingers wrapped around hers as they walked through the village. His laugh had filled their home, a deep, booming sound that made everyone around him feel safe and loved. He had always told her to follow her heart, to never let fear stop her from living fully. The memory of his love began to soothe the ache in her chest, reminding her that his death was not her fault. He had lived a full life, and his love for her had never died. She had to hold on to that. Khalid, too, began to see the love in his memory. His brother had always looked up to him, not because of his strength, but because of his kindness. Khalid had taught him how to fish, how to find joy even in the simplest things. His brother had admired him, not for being perfect, but for being the person who was always there for him. Even though Khalid couldn't save him from the river that day, the bond they shared had been unbreakable. His brother had loved him until the very end, and that love didn't fade, even with time. As the memories of love surfaced, the river around them began to calm. The swirling water slowed, the mist lifted slightly, and the oppressive weight of guilt began to ease. The spirit that had been watching them nodded slowly, a small, knowing smile on its ghostly face. You are beginning to see the truth, it said, its voice softer now, more encouraging. But the journey is not yet over. The truth will set you free, but it will also demand more from you. The spirit's warning echoed in their minds as the boat floated further down the river. The mist still clung to the water like a thick veil, hiding what lay ahead. But Lila and Khalid felt different now. The pain of their memories still lingered, but they no longer felt like prisoners to the past. They had faced their darkest moments and survived. The river had tried to break them, but they had come out stronger, holding on to the love that had been there all along. Khalid squeezed Lila's hand, the warmth of her touch grounding him. "We're going to make it through this," he said, his voice filled with new resolve. He looked into her eyes, and for the first time since entering the river, he felt like they had a chance. Lila nodded, her lips pressing into a determined line. "We have to trust each other, Khalid. That's the only way we'll survive this river. The spirits know our weaknesses, but they don't know the strength of our bond." The boat drifted further into the mist, and the silence around them grew heavier. The air seemed to buzz with a quiet tension, as if the river was waiting for something. The water was still, eerily calm, but Lila and Khalid knew better than to trust the quiet. The river had tested them before, and it wasn't done yet. As they made their vow to trust one another, the mist began to swirl again. From the fog emerged a new figure, taller and more imposing than the first spirit. This one carried a spear, its sharp tip glinting in the dim light. Its face was stern, its eyes glowing like embers. "You have passed the first test," the spirit said, its voice deep and commanding. "But now you must face the truth of your bond. Only then will you be free." Khalid and Lila exchanged a nervous glance. They had already faced so much. What more could the river possibly demand of them? The spirit raised its spear and the water beneath them rippled. "You must choose," it said, "your past or your future." The words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Lila and Khalid exchanged a glance, their hearts racing. The river had already made them relive their deepest wounds, and now, it seemed, it demanded more, a choice between their past and their future. But what did that even mean? How could they possibly choose? The spirit's glowing eyes bore into them, unyielding. "Choose," it repeated. "You cannot have both. Cling to your past and the river will hold you forever. Let go and you will be free to chart your future." Lila's chest tightened. Could she let go of the past? The memories of her father's death, the guilt that had haunted her every day. It was part of who she was. But she had learned something on this journey. The past didn't have to define her. She had clung to it for so long, thinking that her pain was a way of keeping her father's memory alive. But now she realised that it was his love, not the guilt, that truly kept his spirit with her. Khalid too was deep in thought. The loss of his brother had shaped his entire life. He had carried the weight of his failure for years, believing that he could never be whole again. But the river had shown him something different. His brother's love had not disappeared with his death, and holding on to the guilt had only made him blind to the love that still surrounded him. If he continued to carry that pain, he would never be able to move forward. "We have to let go," Lila said softly, her voice trembling but firm. "It's the only way." Khalid nodded, his hand gripping hers tightly. "You're right. We've held onto the past for too long. It's time to let it go and trust in what's ahead." The spirit lowered its spear, watching them intently. "Are you certain?" it asked, its voice almost gentle now. "The past is familiar. The future is uncertain. The choice is not easy." Lila took a deep breath, her heart pounding. "We choose the future. The spirit remained silent for a long moment, its glowing eyes locked on Lila and Khalid. Then, slowly, it stepped back, and the river around them began to change. The water, once calm and still, now churned violently, and the mist thickened until they could barely see each other. The boat rocked beneath them, the current pulling them in different directions. "This is your final test," the spirit's voice boomed, though they could no longer see it. "The river will try to tear you apart. Hold fast to each other, or you will be lost forever." Lila's heart leapt into her throat as the boat tilted dangerously to one side. She reached out for Khalid, her fingers just brushing his as the boat lurched again. The river was no longer just water. It was alive, a force that seemed determined to pull them apart. "Khalid!" Lila cried, her voice barely audible over the roar of the river. She could see him through the mist, his form blurred and distant, but the river was pushing them further apart with every passing second. "I'm here!" Khalid shouted back, his voice strained with effort as he struggled to keep his balance. He reached out for her, but the current was too strong, dragging him away. Lila felt panic rise in her chest. The river was relentless, tugging at her, trying to pull her under, but she couldn't give in. They had come too far, faced too much, to be torn apart now. She closed her eyes for a moment, focusing on the warmth of Khalid's hand, the steady presence that had always been her anchor. "We have to stay together," Lila shouted, her voice filled with desperation. She pushed against the force of the river, inching closer to Khalid with every ounce of strength she had. "Don't let go, Khalid." Khalid gritted his teeth, fighting against the current that tried to drag him down. "I won't!" he yelled, his hand stretching out toward hers. "I promise, Lila, I won't let go." With one final surge of effort, their fingers clasped together, and in that moment, the river's power seemed to falter. The roaring water slowed, the mist began to lift, and the boat steadied beneath them. They had done it. They had held on. As the mist cleared, Lila and Khalid collapsed into the boat, breathless but relieved. The river, once so violent and unforgiving, had calmed. The water now flowed gently beneath them, the current no longer pulling them apart, but carrying them forward together. Lila's heart still raced, but she smiled through the exhaustion. "We made it," she whispered, her hand still tightly gripping Khalid's. "We didn't let go," Khalid smiled back, though his eyes were filled with emotion. "We couldn't. Not after everything we've been through." The spirit reappeared on the riverbank, its form less menacing now. It looked at them with something that almost resembled pride. "You have passed the final test," it said, its voice no longer booming, but soft, almost kind. "The river will not claim you. You are free to go." Lila and Khalid exchanged a glance, relief washing over them. They had faced the river, the spirits, and their darkest memories, and they had come out stronger. "But remember," the spirit added, its gaze serious, "the past will always be a part of you. It does not disappear, but it no longer needs to hold you. You have chosen the future. Hold on to that choice." With those final words, the spirit faded into the mist, leaving them alone on the river. The sun began to rise, its golden light spilling across the water, casting the river in a warm glow. For the first time since their journey began, Lila and Khalid felt a sense of peace. As they floated down the calm river, the weight of their past seemed to lift from their shoulders. The journey had tested them in ways they had never expected, but it had also shown them the strength they possessed, both as individuals and together. The river had not broken them, it had made them stronger. Lila leaned against Khalid, her heart filled with a quiet hope. "What do you think is waiting for us at the end of the river?" she asked softly. Khalid wrapped his arm around her, his voice steady and calm. I don't know, he admitted. But whatever it is, we'll face it together. They sat in silence for a while, watching the sun rise higher in the sky. The river was no longer a place of fear, but a symbol of their journey, of the pain they had faced and the healing they had begun. They didn't know what the future held, but they knew one thing for certain. They would face it together, stronger than ever. As the boat drifted toward the horizon, the landscape around them began to change. The dense mist that had once clouded their view was gone, replaced by clear skies and lush greenery. The Rufiji River, once dark and mysterious, now sparkled in the morning light, its waters calm and inviting. Lila took a deep breath, her chest swelling with a sense of freedom she hadn't felt in years. The weight of her father's death no longer pressed down on her. She would always carry his memory with her, but it no longer controlled her. She had let go of the guilt, and in doing so had found peace. Khalid too felt lighter. The loss of his brother still stung, but the guilt that had haunted him for so long had been lifted. He would always miss his brother, but he knew now that the love they had shared would always be with him. It was that love, not the pain, that would guide him forward. As the boat neared the shore, Lila smiled at Khalid, her heart full of hope. "The river didn't defeat us," she said quietly. Khalid smiled back, his eyes shining with pride. "No, it didn't. We faced it, and we won." Together they stepped onto the shore, leaving the river and their pasts behind. The future awaited them, full of promise and possibility. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they knew they would face them together, their bond stronger than ever. The river of lost souls had tested them, but in the end, it had also set them free. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through the River of Lost Souls. If you enjoyed the story and want to experience more captivating African tales, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a new adventure. We'd also love to hear from you. Share your thoughts and insights in the comments. What part of the story moved you the most? Have you ever faced a challenge where you had to let go of the past? Let's start a conversation and grow this amazing community together. Feel free to share this video with your friends and family so they can join the adventure too. Your support means the world to us, and together we can bring these tales to life for everyone to enjoy.